My name is Gwen and welcome back to Faraday Academy. I know it's been a while since I uploaded a video, so I'm very excited to be back. And today I want to talk about coding schools again. So in my last video about coding schools, I spoke about some things to consider if you are thinking about going to a coding school and how to select the right one for you. This is a follow-up video that I really wanted to make because of the recent news that a programmer who started their own coding school is being sued for allegedly defrauding students and misleading them with outrageous claims. This person, or the entity, was basically making hype videos and other content that made people believe that it was easy and lucrative to get into software development, and that even noobs or people who are relatively new to software development could be making six figures or more in just a short period of time, maybe even a few months. I'm not saying this can't happen, but this is a promise and a dream that is simply not possible for most people, in my opinion. I know many other people have probably talked about this topic already, but I wanted to share my perspective here as a former lead instructor of a coding school. I've also been a mentor for students at various coding schools. I've developed curriculum, and I have kind of an interesting perspective as someone who has helped start a nonprofit coding school before, and I've also looked extensively into starting one of my own a few years ago. Now, I have no idea whether this particular person or other coding schools and people who have been accused of similar things are intentionally trying to defraud people. In fact, I would say that they probably start out with the idea that they are going to make a really great program and people are going to love it. People are going to graduate. They're going to learn to code and find jobs and everything's going to be great. I think that is a very naive way of thinking, but a lot of people unfortunately seem to think that starting a coding school is a relatively easy, low cost, and lucrative opportunity where they can be charging students upwards of $10,000 or $20,000 per person to attend. And they just have to find a good teacher or whatever teacher they can fit, develop a little curriculum, maybe hire a career coach, and they're good to go. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that it's incredibly difficult and expensive to start a coding school. Curriculum is hard to develop, it's expensive, it's not easy to break down concepts in a way that everyone can understand. So it's hard to find good teachers who have also had experience in the development industry who are able to do that and break down concepts. Then you have to find the curriculum developers, you have to find career staff, you have to somehow screen for motivated students who want to learn and are in the right kind of mindset and life situation that will allow them to succeed in your program. I think I could make a list of 100 or 1,000 things to consider before starting and running your own coding school. Even well-funded coding schools that I've seen with some exceptional staff members have a very hard time being able to accommodate and teach so many different types of people that come in and go through the program as students. It's also very difficult for junior developers or brand new developers to find their first job. A lot of coding schools will, in my opinion, make very misleading claims about the percentage of their students that find a development job after graduating. I've seen coding schools who include other types of jobs, maybe just any job working for a tech company, and try to include it as that number. So for example, if you got an IT support job or maybe a Geek Squad job or something like that, they would include it in the number or in the percentage of students that got software development jobs after. And then, of course, we've all heard about coding schools that fudge those numbers or outright lie about those numbers. The truth and reality that I think a lot of coding schools don't want to talk about is that you have to work really hard and you usually have to network a lot in order to find your first software development job. It's not easy, and coding schools usually don't help you that much with finding your first job. They'll help you with maybe updating your resume, doing your portfolio, how to market yourself on LinkedIn, any of those kind of classes that they can give you. And sometimes they can be very helpful. But in the end, you are the one that's going to be networking and marketing yourself and probably landing the first job on your own. So of course, I think coding schools need to be careful about what kind of claims they make, but I also think they really need to think about what the realistic outcomes for their students are. Because I've seen so many students, even good students, that take 6 to 12 months after graduating before finding their first job. And that is usually not the vision they are sold when going into the coding school. Most students expect to find a job within maybe 3 months after graduating. But a lot of times that's not the case, especially in the market today. And it makes me kind of upset when I see coding programs that are making all of these claims, and then students who, a lot of times, at least from my experience, don't have that much money. They're taking out loans for these programs. They get kind of duped into going through this program. I would say duped because they think they're getting something that they're not getting out of the program. They're not getting an almost guaranteed job. And they're certainly, most of the time, not getting a 6-figure income, a lucrative lifestyle, etc. Even after a junior developer gets their first job, usually they're grinding really hard for the first year or two maybe in order to kind of prove themselves in the industry and make themselves hireable in the future. I think that people need to be more realistic when they're giving advice to people getting into the industry. Coding is not easy. It takes being able to fail over and over again. It takes a lot of grit. It takes a lot of patience, especially when you're trying to learn in the beginning and when you're looking for your first job, which may take months or even years. But coding schools will never tell you any of that. They'll never tell you about how hard it is. They'll never mention the mental burnout and exhaustion, or the imposter syndrome, or feeling like a failure over and over and over again and just having to push through until you can get past whatever hurdle you're on. And there's hurdle after hurdle after hurdle when you're getting into software development. So I hope that you are never one of the people that get scammed by one of these low-quality coding schools. As I mentioned before, I made a video previously about finding a good curriculum. And if you're looking for a coding school or looking into going to a coding school in the near future, I highly recommend you first look into self-learning and see if you can use a program like Free Code Camp, network on your own and do other things like that. And second, if you really think a coding school is right for you, if you need that kind of structure and accountability, then I highly recommend you get advice from as many people as possible before choosing a program. And that even before you think about choosing a program, you do try to learn as much as you can on your own. For 2 reasons: to see if you actually like coding and are going to want a job in software development, and second, to prepare yourself for the rigor of most coding school programs. A lot of programs move quite fast and leave students behind in the first few weeks. I'm not trying to scare you away from going to a coding school, but I'm just giving you the reality of it. Coding programs that promise that you can learn all these development schools in 3 to 6 months have to cram in so many things into that time. Because for a lot of people, it could take years to learn that same amount of material that they're trying to cram into just a few months. Because it's not just about learning a language or 2 languages, It's all of the related tools and the ecosystem and deployments, and also industry knowledge, and also how to interview, and all of those other things that you have to learn. One last thing that I want to say about coding schools is that if you do choose to go to a coding school, I highly recommend making as much time as you can to network with the people who are working at the coding school. When I was a lead instructor, I was actually very surprised by how few students ever scheduled time with me to talk to me during my office hours. Not just me, all of the other instructors too. Because all of us had industry experience and lots of connections and could easily recommend students for jobs at different companies or be able to introduce them to certain people in the industry. Even today, when I'm thinking about who to hire at my company or at other companies, when people reach out to me asking for recommendations for hiring, I think about who are the best students that went through my program. Not necessarily the smartest, I guess, but the best in terms of having the most drive and grit and motivation and being able to get along with other students and work in a team and really just trying and never giving up. I was also super impressed by students who ran peer mentoring sessions outside of the school to kind of help each other and also learn better through teaching their peers. It's those kind of students that I would always recommend for a job. And I also know a lot of other instructors who teach at different coding schools, and sometimes I do reach out to them. I'll ask them, hey, do you know any previous students you had who you thought were really good, who would be interested in such and such type of work? If you have any questions or additional comments about what I covered today about coding schools in general, please leave them in the comment section below, and maybe I can make a follow-up video to this, because I really love to talk about coding education, how to learn, and just about self-learning or coding schools in general. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you very soon.